Okay, we're live.
Yes, well, welcome everyone to this week's Stop the Violence. I want to welcome everyone here. As Nadia was talking prior to rolling the cameras, it just I'm always amazed that it was 3 years since we started this, and it's been an amazing journey. We started off with originally dealing with gun violence, and that is a big issue in America and around the world today. However, as in our episodes, we began to listen to the various excellent speakers that came on from the law enforcement, from religious background, from political background, social background, activists, all sorts of people have been on, and we realize that it's not only about the gun. And as I always say, that a gun is an inanimate object. It takes a person to pick it up and shoot them or harm another person. Then what is the root cause of a person picking up this particular weapon in order to cause harm to its fellow brother, his sister, fellow neighbor, whomever it is? So the root cause seems to be the avenue that we should go in order to begin to reduce violence in America, violence across the world. And so, as I had said, we've had extraordinary speakers, extraordinary insights, and what I say all the time, we have people who just have already shared with us best practices that we've seen sustainable and even measurable changes in their particular community. So now our mission, we feel, will be how to take these best practices from the various people and persons and organizations that have come on and bring them together and create a collaborative national effort to stop the violence in America. But today we have another special guest, and her name is Lindsay LiCausi, founder of Back the Blue, North Carolina, correct?
Correct.
Lindsay LiCausi comes from a military family, but is the first to serve in law enforcement. She proudly serves the Carroll County Sheriff Office in Maryland as a child abuse sex crime detective. Wow. Throughout her career, Lindsay worked with the multiple agencies, including Homeland Security, ICE, FBI, U.S. Marshals, Maryland State Police, and other local agencies. She was awarded the Project Safe Child Award by the U.S. Attorney Office for the District of Maryland and was nationally recognized by the NCMEC and invited to instruct for Child First. She now serves as the CEO of the Back to Blue North Carolina, Inc., a 501c nonprofit. She founded it in July 2020 to help support the children and families of North Carolina law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty. Since its founding, Back to Blue North Carolina, Inc. has been able to deliver over 1.25 million to serving families, members, worked in cooperation with the Tunnel to the Towers to provide 10 mortgage-free homes, attended numerous funerals and memorial services. The organization also provides a confidential certified chaplain to officers and their families in need of mental health resources. Wow, that's a very impressive resume, and it speaks a lot in itself. So we just want to welcome you to our platform, and we want to hear your hopes, your strengths, and all the things that you have been doing and working towards in stopping the violence within your community and ultimately in America. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I guess this all goes back to my roots as a detective up in Maryland. Like you stated, I come from a military family, so that nature to serve, that desire to serve, I feel is just ingrained in me on a natural level. I always had an interest in law enforcement. Growing up and watching cops, as simple as that, seeing the heroes on the road doing their jobs, getting the bad guy, seeing the excitement that it was not a typical 9-to-5 job, that you're always handling something different, but most importantly, making a difference in the community that you served. And so in 2011, I had undergone the basic law enforcement training program through the Maryland State Police up in Maryland. Graduated, became a deputy for the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, and saw firsthand the impact that violence had on my community that I had not would have been aware of otherwise. For example, seeing domestic violence situations, child abuse, abuse between family members, shootings, stabbings, things of that nature, and trying to get to the root cause of how did this happen? How did these emotions and these actions lead up to these final moments of passion and violence, really. And I did see there wasn't much of a pattern, except a lot of it seemed to come from within familiar relationships, family member to family member, or friends, significant others. I remember responding to a lot of domestic violence incidents where either party could have been the victim or responsible, or in some cases both were. And so I worked on cases like that for a while I served as a patrol deputy before I got promoted to a detective in our child abuse and sex crimes unit. And that's where I got to see the real monster that most people don't have to see and don't know about in our communities. And that is the violence, not just physically, but sexually towards our children and to our elders as well. And that was a big eye opener for me, because you never really know how much goes on behind closed doors unless you're working in a position of that nature. I thought my county was safe, it was quiet, and to see the amount of cases coming in of abuse and trauma were just overwhelming to me at first. But I was able to find comfort in the fact that I knew my investigations and my testimonies in court were making a difference, not only to help put the offender away, but also to help start the healing process for the victim and their families who were affected by tragedies such as that. And I served in that position for 3 years. Like you stated, I worked a lot with FBI, Homeland Security, was recognized by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. I'd gotten a lot of virtual cases from them. So my expertise was pretty much on the digital sides of things, child pornography and following up with those cases, investigating them, finding the offender, and interviewing the victims, collecting enough evidence until we could go to court and have an airtight case and make sure that offender was convicted and could not come out and offend again. And you would think that most child abuse cases would be outside of the family. You think of strangers on the corner of the street, or driving by in a creepy van, when most of the times it's the people that you live with that are doing these things to you or to others. And so violence can begin in the home as well. The nature of relationships within the home, maybe mental health issues, whether they're not addressed, understood, or treated properly, or even family members protecting offenders just because they were family, which, anybody who commits a crime that severe should be outed and should be serving time in jail to get them off of the streets and from reoffending. And after serving in that capacity for 3 years, I started my own family. I had my daughter with my husband, and she was about a year old when I left the department, and we decided to start new here in North Carolina, make it home. Once you have your own child, it completely changes the magnitude of the cases that you work. You relate to it in a completely different level, and it made me hard. It made it difficult for me to trust other people, especially with my child. But in the time that I spent raising our children down here and making sure they're safe and, getting into school and all that good stuff, I established nonprofit Back the Blue NC. And initially that was in reaction to the defund the police movement. As you know, that became very violent in itself. There were a lot of protests that the media claimed to be peaceful, and they were not. You saw people smashing buildings and cop cars and setting fire and looting, all in the name of what they would call social justice. And I felt like sending a violent message, but saying you're peaceful, is not going to make a difference. And the media really portrayed it as though the majority of Americans felt like law enforcement were the bad guys and not to be trusted, when I knew personally that was definitely not the case. Not just being in law enforcement myself, but working with so many other fellow law enforcement officers in all different capacities. And when I first started my group, we held what was actually a peaceful rally in our capital to show officers that the majority of the public do support them and do want to know that we need them, we appreciate them, we love what they're doing and how they are serving us as a community. And thanks to law enforcement presence, that was able to remain peaceful despite protesters trying to disrupt our rally. And so overall, is a very positive, very large community gathering with a lot of speakers about peacefully demonstrating your opinions and, having the right to speak, but not necessarily having the right to do it in a violent manner, as we all saw on the TV. And shortly after our inception, it was actually the day before we were going to do one in Charlotte, we lost an officer, Deputy Ryan Hendricks of the Henderson County Sheriff's Office. He was responding to a call about a carjacking when the suspect opened fire on him, struck him in the head, and killed him almost instantly. And he had left behind 2 young children. At this point, we had raised almost $10,000 just from people who wanted to support our cause, people who gave us merchandise to sell during our rallies to show support. And at that moment, I knew this is what I want to do with this money we have raised. I want to go and support his children during the most tragic incident of their lives, because not only did they lose a father, a supporter, the community lost a civil worker, they also lost financial security. And while that is not the most important thing during a tragic event like that, that is one less thing I wanted the family to worry about, was finances. And so we were able to present them with $10,000, which were placed into the children's trust funds accounts. So that hopefully when they hit 18, it makes it a little bit easier for them to purchase a vehicle, pursue their dreams in college, or start their own life on their own. And ever since then, we have incorporated, applied for our 501c3 nonprofit status, which was granted, and continue to assist the children and the families of officers killed in the line of duty here in North Carolina. So over the past 4 years, we have raised and distributed over $1.25 million to these families. We work with Tunnel to Towers. Anytime we lose an officer, they're one of my first phone calls, besides the department, is just to let them know we lost a hero. And, you know, they may leave behind a spouse and children, and they're going to need help with their mortgage. They're going to need one less thing to worry about while they work through this tragedy. And so with them, we have been able to foster about 10 mortgages paid for completely through that partnership. But giving them the financial donation also takes another load off of their back. You know, they don't have to worry about the immediate needs, bills being paid, or needs down the road when their children get older. If they want to do extracurriculars, you know, purchasing that first car, looking into college, the costs that are associated with raising children. You know, in that moment, you want that family to grieve. And we grieve with them too. We attend every memorial and funeral service that we are able to show our support. When we are finished fundraising for the family, we meet with them at their loved one's respective law enforcement office to deliver that check to them, as well as a memorial plaque for the family and for the department. And the departments hang these plaques in their lobbies, most likely. And that just helps ensure that the name of that officer is never forgotten. And so we like to keep their memories alive and continue to honor and support the officers that we have lost while assisting the officers who currently serve today. And some ways that we do that are the certified chaplain that we have. Any officer or their family who may be going through a mental crisis, who just needs somebody to talk to, they can turn to our chaplain. She's familiar with various police departments. She works with them currently, 100% confidential. She knows what she's doing. She's very sweet and very supportive. So we have that as a resource. We have a scholarship program for basic law enforcement training through the Wake Tech Community College in Deputy Ned Bird's name, because he did not leave behind loved ones like a spouse or children. He left behind a sister who said, we want to give this money back. And so we decided to use that money to establish a scholarship in his name so that his legacy can live on through these future students who may need assistance, who otherwise cannot afford to put themselves through basic law enforcement training, but have the passion and the dedication to serve their communities.
Wow, thank you very much. That was a mouthful.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a lot. And just want to thank you for your heart of service. And, you know, one of the things that you reminded me of when I went through the litany of type of people who come on, I forgot to mention, and you reminded me of, and that is the mental health profession, the mental health issues that are affecting people, that plays a critical role in violent behavior. Yeah, and I appreciate what you shared. We don't know what's going on behind those closed doors. As you had said, you would think that a lot of that violence or these heinous sex crimes that are committed toward family members and children are outside the family, but many times they're inside the family. And you know, that's heartbreaking to think about those things. But also another thing that I appreciate you bringing up is the what caused you to the root cause of you starting back to blue was when this whole issue of defunding police came into existence, and I too was amazed by all the violence that I saw. But the media was saying these people, it was peaceful because it was in the name of social justice. Didn't get it. What does that mean? You know,
Right.
we saw them burning down police stations. We saw all sorts of things going on that did not make any sense. And did we solve the problem that way? No. And I agree with you. In any case, we have all sorts of bad apples in the police department, but that's not the general rule. It shouldn't be the general rule. And there's several people putting their lives on the line and think like you, as you had said. You were raised in that environment and you followed the same footsteps. And it's a service that your family uh, rendered, and it's a service that you felt that you wanted to continue. So when you think of the word service, that means that you are looking to help others. That's what's in your heart. So I'm quite sure there's several police officers and law enforcement personnel that are out there are the same. So they shouldn't be put under that same umbrella that people are accusing them of, and then okay, let's defund them. What I mean, come on.
Right.
So I really thank you for that, and the efforts that you're making and it's true. I like how you phrased it. It made a lot of sense. During critical times and times of grief, and people are not really thinking about money. They're thinking about the pain and suffering they're experiencing from losing a loved one. But the reality is that death does leave a void, and that's usually a financial void as well. And so you felt as if you wanted to help and take care of that. So we're delving into deep root causes. There's a lot of questions I would love to ask, but I want to open up the floor, especially um, with these crimes that are committed toward children. I'm quite sure you're probably finding out that that person who committed that particular crime, was a victim of the same crime. So it's like a vicious cycle, correct?
Yes, I did see that a lot.
So thank you. So I want to open up the floor. I see a T. Oh, she's clapping. Anyone like the floor is open. Anyone would like to ask a question, make a statement to our dear friend, Sister Lindsay?
I would.
Okay. Nadia, thank you. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. I know that you're focusing on Back the Blue right now, but I was wondering, when you were doing these investigations, I was so impressed because if you prepare the people to go to court and you need an airtight case, that means you've got a special gift to be able to bring out the details of what actually happened. If you could speak to that, and also, what are the signs? People like us who don't deal with it, you were surprised when you started this. What are the signs? Are there like, subtle signs that we can pick up on? Not to spy on people or anything like that, but just to be aware to help us.
Um, that's always a hard thing. Some people may show subtle signs such as seeming on edge, hyper aware of their surroundings. You can tell their body language when they feel uncomfortable towards somebody. Um, so there are subtle signs that I have noticed in the victims I've dealt with, but it also doesn't cover everybody who may show these subtle signs. So that's something that's really hard to speak on specifically because every person is different. You don't know what's going on in their head. You don't know if it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, or even mental abuse, or just, something else that makes them uncomfortable, anxiety, social anxiety in some cases. So yeah, that's really, that is something difficult to speak on. I did notice that a lot of the children I dealt with were withdrawn in school and social situations. Most don't speak to their family members. They may speak to a friend or a teacher, who then in turn speaks to somebody else who reports the incident going on. But you did have a first question there that I'd like to touch on as well. Could you repeat that?
Well, I was wondering, when you went to court, you have to prepare people, for an airtight case. And in order to do that, you have to be gifted to be able to know what questions to ask so that case can be, solid.
Right. So when I was on patrol, I got a call. I must have been only 4 months in on patrol when my major called me. And he said, "You have really good report writing skills and really good investigative skills. We want you to consider applying for this position in our sex crimes unit." And I was not expecting that. I was thinking I was going to do K9, or something cool. And I never had imagined that would have led to working with abused children and other people who are being abused. But I did apply and I got the position. And when I went in there, I felt like it was my spot, like my niche. I felt like it came to me naturally. They do send you to training to learn how to interview children properly, because you cannot imply any answers while you're questioning them. Everything has to flow naturally from the child. Nothing can be suggested or implied or, pretty much put in their head or in their mouth. So there's definitely a really tactical way of conducting interviews with them. And that's why when I went through child first training, it went so well. When I had my final exam, they invited me to come back to be an instructor to help teach future sex crimes detectives how to interview a child. So for me, I'm guessing maybe it just came on natural. And if so, that was a blessing. Besides that, airtight cases are a must, making sure you have every detail possible in there, every piece of evidence that you have bagged and stored properly, accounted for, every detail in the interview, no matter how minute you think it might seem, accounted for, grammar and punctuation perfect, because when you get to court, the attorneys, they will try to trip you up. They will try to tear apart your report, to try to catch you on any mistake that you make. Also, interrogation is a big deal. So you have to go from interviewing a little child to sitting across from the table with a full-grown adult male, and go from being sweet and not coddling, but knowing how to talk to them, to knowing how to be firm with a grown man or grown offender, and being able to not just get the answers that you need from the child, but to get the answers you definitely know that you need, the admittal from the suspect. So you have to be soft and hard at the same time. And that can be especially difficult for some detectives.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great question, Nadia. Why I say that is that you use the word, you must be gifted. And I thought about it, and she confirmed it, actually, by saying it was her niche, and they saw her ability. So you picked that up very well, Nadia. Anybody else?
Yes, I
Hi,
have
Nadia.
hi, greetings, everyone. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for sharing with us. And I want to commend you for the work that you're doing. To be able to be in that place to support the police department at a time where they're moving from one place to another and not necessarily knowing what they're going to face after that. So I thank you for being in position. It's like Reverend Oliver said, you think of a lot of things during that time, but you don't always think about finances. You know, we think about the mental piece, we think about the emotional state, we think about the psychology of it all, and know that we're missing someone from our family, but we don't always connect that to the financial piece. So I commend you and appreciate you doing that work. Nadia asked a question about signs or how you're able to identify certain things. And I think you made that very clear, to be able to listen. You know, a lot of times children are telling us things, but because they're children, we don't always listen. So I think that's an important piece of it all. And you have to be a very attentive listener to be able to go from the child to the adult. I worked in the prison system, so I'm aware of narrative writing and being clear and concise. You have to leave out all the fluff and all the emotion. So I appreciate the work that you're doing. And as you continue to move forward, you'll be in my prayers. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Alexander. Well said. Yeah, hi, Sharon. How are you?
Yeah. Lindsay, I apologize. The plumber was at our house because we live a little bit on a hill, and because of the, hurricane, all our plumbing system is not working. So
Oh no.
it's been fun, but we're alive, so that's all that matters. But
Amen.
I just want
Right.
to give a shout out, because when I met Lindsay in a 5K race, she was so warm and friendly. And what I really appreciated is that she erased the stigma about the police department. I got to volunteer that day, and the detectives and the police, they're very serious people, but very sincere. And, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, I was growing up, it'd always be like, oh my goodness, the police car's got his lights on. You're going to get a ticket. You're going to get a ticket. This bad thing about the police, or be afraid of the police, But I tried to educate my grandchildren and our children that, never be afraid of them, that they're here to serve you and to help you. But I was so impressed at that 5K race. There were so many children and so many families that were running.
Yeah.
And I know you're a mom, Lindsay. So, I think that's why you're so good in the field talking to young people, because you know how to tone it down. Anyway.
Oh, thank you.
And you smile all the time. Right now on this call, she's not smiling as much, but usually she smiles a lot. Anyway,
Yeah, Lindsay, I'm not one to like being in front of the camera, if that makes sense.
Yes. Anyway,
But
I'm so
it was
glad.
a pleasure meeting you. That 5K was great. And you see all the cops out there, they have families too. They just want to go home too. That's really it. At the end of the day, they want to go home too. And what you said about teaching the younger generation that our police are friends and not enemies is very important. Because, sometimes you get that as a deputy walking in, trying to grab lunch. Somebody be like, oh, Billy, you better behave or the cop's going to come get you. You'll be like, no, you want to tell them if you're ever in trouble, find a trusted adult, a police officer, a teacher, somebody that's going to help you. Don't instill that fear, instill that that trust and faith in them.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for bringing her on. The floor is still open for anyone else to make some remarks, have some questions out there. Anyone else?
I do have, since I'm from Minneapolis, I do have something about Back the Blue that I kind of found was interesting after George Floyd. I don't know how to spotlight myself. Oh, there it is. I'm doing tech too. So, after George Floyd, there was a big defund the police move in Minneapolis. And it was interesting because I thought it was kind of political, you know. This side wants to defund the police and this side is, you know, law and order and, you know, realizes all the implications of both. And it was interesting because the people from North Minneapolis who are mostly Democrats, you know, liberal politics and stuff, they were outraged because their leadership, who didn't even live in the area, were saying, let's defund the police. And they're like, well, what am I supposed to do when somebody's breaking into my garage? You know, and you know, it's like they're, you know, they realize the reality of defunding the police. Can you speak to that at all as far as politics versus real life versus, you know, anything else that I'm not seeing as far as the big picture?
Yeah, sure. Unfortunately, because it was an election season, it had to get political.
Yeah.
I see it as that way. And I hate that it had to be political because of the actions or the results of one officer, a group of officers are being portrayed in such a way that it's causing all of officers to look bad.
Right.
And so you're creating this polarization, and when it shouldn't have been a big political issue, it did.
Yeah.
And, you know, everybody got up in arms about it because you said the one side is very strong, defund, defund, defund. You know, they're talking about sending mental health workers in to deal with some of these cases. But in order to deal with some of these cases where mental health is an issue or a factor, you need to be protected and you need to be trained.
Yes.
And then on the other side, defunding the police was definitely not an option. If anything, the police needed more funding. The police do not get paid enough for the duties that they do, the job that they have, the hours they work, the overtime that they have to put in, you know, not knowing if they're going to go home at the end of their shift or not knowing what's going to happen to them on duty. Our officers really deserve more than what they are given right now, not just with payment and funding, but if the community wanted to see a difference, perhaps implement some further training to help build a stronger bond with the community instead of trying to divide the community.
And we do see just recently, there's some new leadership in the MPD, Minneapolis Police Department. And it looks like they've got a really good plan for a program for retraining and for, you know, new people. A lot of people quit. A lot of law enforcement quit because it was just too much. So that they're really bringing that back. So I'm really happy to see that, because right now North Minneapolis is like a third world country. There's, you know, it's crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I know the morale of a lot of police officers and departments down, because it makes you especially think like, why am I going to go and risk my life for $50,000 a year when I'm not even being respected?
Right.
You know, so a lot of officers felt that way. A lot of people quit. A lot of people said it wasn't worth it. And then you have more evidence than ever now, body cam footage, people with their cell phones, officers afraid to act because they feel like if I act in a split second and something is conceived or portrayed wrong, I could not just lose my job, but my whole life could be ruined. I could end up in jail.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I just thought it was an overkill with kind of violence that you had indicated and that we all had witnessed that emerged from that, and those who were advocating to fund the police. And I'm right with you, Nadia, I was thinking the same thing. The various people who are the greatest advocates and protesters are the very people who are not living in the communities that are sometimes ravaged with crime, that need someone to come and detour the situation, you know. And so I'm wondering, well, you don't live there, but yeah. So a lot of people in those communities did not, even though sometimes they were deemed or the victims or the target of some of these police officers who may have been the bad apple. But at the same time, it is their communities that needs more policing as well. So who wants to have nothing to call? You know, what are you defunding? You have nothing to call. So it would be truly anarchy, you know, in some respects, right? So yeah, I agree. And anybody else have any other statements that they would like to make and to share in regards to this topic that we're on?
How about Arcadio? He works out in the community. It looks like he might be.
Oh, really? Okay. Arcadio, are you available? Oh, yes. Hey. Muted or?
I think he's muted.
Looks like he's unmuted, but somehow, Arcadio, we don't hear your sound.
Yeah, we don't hear you. Is some way that we can help him?
Can you go out and then come back? Oh, whoops. Hello? Whoop. That's mute.
It's mute. Why don't you unmute it?
Oh, somebody's gonna help here.
Excuse me.
Do you think maybe he has to go out and come back in again?
Might be. While he's doing that, why don't we have someone else come and share something? How about Ray McCready? Who was also. I just saw Ray. Anyone else? How about Atif? Are you there? Would you like to ask a question?
He's coming from Pakistan.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think things are a little different there.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, I would like to, I'm glad Arcadia is coming back on. I was not here when he came and spoke. So I would love to hear. But anything else that you'd like to share with us in regards to your hopes and strengths, and what are you looking for, and what do you think can play a critical part in the change that are needed, not only within your confines of your community, but on a national level?
I think we can all start with some more community engagement. I see since the George Floyd incident has kind of blown over, the defund the police movement has blown over. The departments are really getting out there more with more community engagement programs. Not that just the ones they normally do, like Shop with a Cop, the Special Olympics torch run, but now they're doing small events like Coffee with a Cop. We have National Night Out once a year. Departments go and just have a good family friendly time with the communities. more officers try to be more boots on the ground. So they're not just driving through, but they're walking around, interacting with the public. I think that's very important as well. So not only does the officer get to know their community a little bit more personally, but the community gets to know, you know, who this person is and their story, and, you know, feel safe knowing, you know, deputy or officer so and so, they work my area, you know, they're around, I trust them, I have a good relationship with them, talk about our kids, you know, really getting down to the smaller things, what makes us connected as people, really, which is all we are at the end of the day. Under that uniform, we're just a person with a family with the same stress and headaches and, you know, bills as everybody else. And the job shouldn't make us any different, portrayed any different. And like you said, most cops do it because they have a calling. We don't do it for the we don't do it for the pay. We don't do it for the flashing lights and the cool car. We do it because it's a calling and because we really want to make a difference.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Hey, are you there, Arcadio? Oh my God.
Oh,
Yeah, he works in this area. While we're doing that, what I would like to say is that even though it was a very crucial and hectic and time with George Floyd and this whole new mission, defund the police, but actually, like you said, we need more funding, and the funding could go to some of these other projects, positive projects. And
right.
one of the good things that have come out, and I just heard you say, was a lot of new innovative programs have emerged that allows for pushing and creating a platform for all law enforcement officers to go and engage with the community more on a personal level. That makes a whole lot of difference. So yeah, you know, I didn't know, have, you know, coffee with your law enforcement. This makes a difference. And I think out of all of that, good came out of it too, right?
I think so. Yes, I think so. I wish that what we had seen would have been different. I think that there's a certain way to ask for change, and that's not the way that we saw it. What we saw was a giant tantrum instead of suggestions and discussions, as it should have been. But we're doing well now, and I think we have bounced back. We're doing even better with community engagement. And on top of that, we're even seeing more mental health resources being provided to our law enforcement officers, which is extremely important as well, addressing their mental health needs.
Right. That's another thing. Yes, of course. Yeah, that's really incredible. Arcadio, can we hear you? No, he's still not able to come on. Yeah, so this whole that was a crucial time. What I say, always the end result speaks to America as a nation. We're really a religious, a Christian nation. So the outcomes would always be where our Christendom, if you will, our religiosity will emerge, you know? And so for those other people out there, of course it was political, it was a time of elections, but I think the people have nefarious agendas that have nothing to do with really the police or the victims that the police have. They're saying, you know, this is what you think, but I think there's other nefarious agendas out there, because that was a little overkill, you know.
Right. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, it's a little overkill.
But like you said, you know, at the end of the day, we're a strongly Christian nation. We're very resilient. We have bounced back. hopefully for better now, not going back to that, not back to the worst. And we can continue to improve, building up that relationship between law enforcement and the community, to where it needs to be.
I think so. And I think it looks like it's going in a positive direction. And like you said, we're all human beings at the end of the day, and those officers want to go home as well. You know? So, but they play a critical role. We've had other community activists that were on, and they always advocate that once the officers can come and engage with the community, they play a critical role in a lot of deterring crime and you know, helping. Sometimes they become mentors, you know, to
Yes, they do.
Yeah,
They do.
so that's really powerful. Anyone else like to share with us as we are coming to the close? Arcadio, you know, I was not there with you. I was out when you came on, so I really didn't get a chance to talk with you, but we look forward to talking with you, and maybe next week, or if you're at the last minute, you can get your audio working. We'd love to hear from you. But as we're coming to the close, I would like to ask anyone to share anything else that they would like to our Lindsay or to our audience.
I have
Some
another,
last words. Go ahead.
I have another piece of good news in the Midwest that Chicago prays for their officers. All the officers on the Chicago police force know that Rita Pritchett, I believe she's a bishop, retired now, but they know that we've got their back and that we will pray for them and with them. So that's another positive thing, because we know about Chicago too. So as far as
Yes, of course.
dealing.
Yes, good. Of course. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Rita Pritchett. Yeah, well, she was in the law enforcement like you for a while. And she became a chaplain, and now she's in the ministry. And she helped to bridge us and community activists and law enforcement individuals together to create a better synergy within the greater communities in Chicago. So we want to give a beautiful, wonderful shout out to Rita Pritchett. She's a very unique and wonderful friend and sister of ours. Anyone else, as we're coming to the close, would like to share anything? If not, then Lindsay, I would like you to say some closing words for us, and anything else you would like to share. And also, we will be having a national conference in December. So I'm creating an organizing committee for that. And so I let those know on Saturday. I would send out a Zoom link, and hoping those can come on and help with creating this wonderful conference. And the purpose of it is bringing like-minded people like yourself together with other like-minded people that are in different communities and different states, coming together and creating a national support system with one another. And so your last. So any last words you would like to share with us?
I would like to, of course, say thank you again for having me on, giving me the time to speak on this important subject matter, and for your very thoughtful, respectful questions. But I would like to close with, I just want everybody to keep Western North Carolina and all the other areas affected by Hurricane Helene in your prayers. Unfortunately, we lost not just over 160 confirmed civilians so far after the hurricane, but 2 deputies were lost as well. Many officers from various departments have gone over to the mountains to assist with rescue efforts and disaster relief efforts. Many of them are working long shifts, lacking supplies that they need, lacking the food that they need, We're working very hard to get those out right now to our first responders. So please just keep everybody working the storm and caught up in the storm in your prayers. They definitely need it right now. They need the strength to keep going. And I think that is pretty much it. I'm going to leave it at that. Just, yeah, keep them in your thoughts and prayers, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for reminding us for that. And sometimes the you know, when we're not in the middle of it, we're not always cognizant or thinking of it. So thank you. It's true that we have our fellow citizens and lives have been taken from this. And you're almost are you near it? You're Carroll County?
I'm actually relocated down to Franklin County, North Carolina.
Okay.
So if you know
Okay.
where Raleigh is, just north of Raleigh.
Mhm.
And so I'm about central of the state. The mountains are to the west of me, but
Okay.
our organization is already working to get supplies to law enforcement and first responders out there.
Yes.
Because they are getting a lot of help, but citizens don't really think about the things that the first responders need, specialized items like tactical gear and boots and PPE, canine food is one thing that they need. So we're working hard to take care of those who are taking care of everybody else right now.
Thank you again. Thank you for reminding us of that. And thank you for the service that you have been rendering to your community and to the lives, especially to others, and especially as the lives of our young people who are in desperate need of a person like you and many that have risen to emerge to help our children. Sometimes we're we're not cognizant of, I think there's a word you used, you were doing some detective work, you were out there, but then when you really took this full-time job, dealing with sex offenders and sex crimes that are committed against children, you used a very critical word. You said, then I realized that there were kind of monsters out there. Yeah, and sometimes you don't know that. Okay, I hear from EJ, how do we send any donations if anybody, because we are also on live as well. How do we send any donations? Could you let us know? And those people.
Yeah, our website is easybackthe.bluenc.org. On the front page listed, you'll see our GoFundMe. Within our GoFundMe, if you happen to be in North Carolina, we have physical donation sites established with fellow law enforcement agencies. We also are using the GoFundMe money to help fulfill any gaps that may arise as these supplies go out to our law enforcement officers. But yeah, backthebluenc.org if you want to go through GoFundMe. There's also a donate button in the top right hand corner. You can go through PayPal, or you can go to what we call our 1033 program page, which explains more about how and why we got started and other ways to donate. You know, some people prefer check by mail and other options like that. It's all on our website.
Okay, excellent. So that was your website you gave us, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right, excellent. So did everybody get that? Could you mention it again? Back to Blue NC.
Sorry, my voice is a little raspy today. Yes. Back the Blue NC as in North Carolina .org.
.org. Very simple. Oh, thank you very much. Again, I want to thank you for coming again, and I want to thank all the questions that were asked and everybody who shared with us. Again, thank you, Sharon, for meeting this great law enforcement officer and bringing her on. And we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, everyone, God bless you. We are, our KDO said, we're showing the humankind side of law enforcement. Thank you for that.
Thank you for those kind words. Thank you.
Yeah, because he comes from, I think he's You're welcome. He comes from the prison system himself. You know, he's a product of that, and emerged and became a critical player in helping others, not going that route, and emerging from those routes as well. God bless you. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Dr. Madeline. Thank you, Nadia, all the time. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, EJ. Thank you, all those people who didn't say anything, but I know your support back there. And thank you to all the audiences that are out there and our live audience. We love you, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, thank you. God bless.
God bless, guys. Thank you.
Right, have a
Thank
safe
you.
week.
Okay, take care.